1943. One of the darkest years in human history. The sky was filled with bombs, the oceans were filled with bodies, and science was no longer under control. During World War II, nations were not only sacrificing soldiers, they were sacrificing their humanity. The United States was beginning to feel something new, the real possibility of losing the war. Ships were disappearing in the Atlantic. Thousands of sailors never returned. And then a question was asked. What if the only way to save a ship is to make it invisible? That question opened a door that was never meant to be opened. And that door was opened in the harbour of Philadelphia. In times of war, logic changes. Ideas once considered impossible suddenly become necessary. By 1943, invisibility was no longer science fiction. It was a survival strategy. Naval officers understood one brutal truth. If a ship appears on radar, it will be destroyed. If it does not appear, it survives. This simple equation pushed science past its limits. Scientists were given unrestricted authority. Do whatever it takes. But no one asked the most important question. What if we lose control? At first, the project seemed harmless. Disrupt radar signals, deactivate magnetic mines. This method was known as degaussing. Ships were surrounded by powerful electromagnetic fields, but as the experiments intensified, something strange happened.
The stronger the field became, the more perception itself began to change.
Technicians reported dizziness. Some lost track of time. Others claimed they felt moments of complete non-existence. These reports were ignored because there was a war to win. At this point, the project stopped being engineering. It became theory. Electromagnetism, light, space, time. Some scientists believed if light can be bent, then reality itself can be bent. But there was a problem. The theory was incomplete, and half-understood science is the most dangerous kind, because its consequences cannot be predicted. USS Eldridge was not an ordinary warship. It was newly built. Its electrical system was powerful. It was the perfect platform. But the most important detail was this. The crew did not know the true purpose of the experiment. They were told only one thing. This is a defensive test. As the ship changed, the sailors felt it. The cables, the coils, the constant humming. And worst of all, the nightmares began. On the day of the test, the harbour was silent. The generators were activated. Power levels increased. At first, nothing happened. Then,
the air became heavy. Pressure filled the ears. Metal surfaces appeared to ripple. And then,
a greenish fog surrounded the ship. One witness later said, the ship looked like it no longer belonged to this world. And 1 second later,
USS Eldridge vanished.
Some witnesses claimed something even more disturbing. The same ship appeared at another harbour at the exact same time, hundreds of miles away. Then it disappeared again. If true, this was not invisibility. This was a rupture in space-time. And at that moment, there was no turning back. When the ship returned, no one celebrated, because what came back was no longer the same. According to testimonies, some sailors were fused into the metal of the ship. Some had lost all connection to reality. Some died instantly, and some never returned at all. The experiment was immediately shut down, but it was already too late. The US Navy denied everything. Documents were destroyed, witnesses were silenced, some were sent to psychiatric institutions. The story was officially labelled a myth. But myths are not born like this. Years passed. There were no official records, no public witnesses. The event was buried as an urban legend. Until one thing happened. A letter arrived.
In 1955, author and astronomer Maurice K. Jessup received a strange letter. The sender called himself Carl Meredith Allen, sometimes using the name Carlos Miguel Allende. What he wrote was disturbing. Allen claimed, "I personally witnessed the Philadelphia experiment. The ship disappeared, and when it returned, the men aboard were no longer human."
That alone could have ended the story, but there was a problem. The letter was filled with technical detail. Carl Allen used correct naval terminology. He referenced ship names accurately, dates, times, ranks. And the most disturbing part, he knew details about an experiment that officially never existed. According to Allen, the experiment was not conducted only once. Early failures were covered up. Some sailors disappeared weeks after returning. And his most terrifying claim was this: some of them became trapped in time. They never came back. Because we didn't know where they went, Jessup initially dismissed the letters. But then something unexpected happened. The US Navy contacted him. They requested a copy of his book that had been covered in handwritten notes. The notes were written in different colours, appeared to come from multiple voices, described the same experiment from different perspectives. This version became known as the Varro edition. The question was obvious. If this was pure fiction, why was the Navy interested? Was Carl Allen credible? Officially, he had psychological issues. His statements were inconsistent. He sometimes contradicted himself. But several people said what he knew was the kind of knowledge a sailor would have. So there were only two possibilities. One, he was delusional. Two, or he knew too much. And that made him dangerous. No confirmed Navy witness ever spoke publicly, but families did. Years later, relatives of sailors said, "The men returned changed. They screamed at night. They feared the ocean." One mother said, "My son came back from the ship, but it felt like he came back from somewhere else." These testimonies were never officially recorded. Individually, the letters seem unreliable, the witnesses seem unstable, the documents are missing. But together, the story becomes consistent. The same details, the same fears, the same silence. Researchers began to ask, why would so many people tell the same lie? Those who spoke about the experiment paid a price. Careers were destroyed. People were institutionalized. Some vanished entirely. And others chose silence, because sometimes silence is the only way to survive. Maybe Carl Allen was lying, but what if he wasn't? What if the Philadelphia experiment never truly ended? Maybe the Philadelphia experiment never happened, or maybe humanity opened a door it was never meant to open, and what came through that door was never brought under control. Some experiments don't fail. They are hidden.